I will call to order the school board meeting of January 8th, 2025. If you could join me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we are on to minutes for December 4th and December 18th.
Move December 4th.
I will second. Nate and Kendra. Any discussion?
I think this one, I think it was this one, but I noticed a ton of typos. That's so funny, but- Thank you.
I can go for it too, if you want.
Yeah, I noticed a lot, so
Yeah.
that's why I just,
Some typos.
yeah.
Yeah, this typo.
Any content? That needs to be revised. Okay. All in favor of approving the December 4th? Oh, this, on the agenda it says 2025, but it is 2024. Minutes, with typos correctly. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. December 18th.
Move ready.
I will second. Nate and Kendra. Any discussion?
Typo. It's a typo.
Okay. We'll look at that as well. Any other content that needs to be amended? Okay. All in favor of approving the December 18th minutes with typos corrected?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are on to public comments.
Good evening, Kevin Verville, McCarran Road. Just here to express my continued disappointment that the chair of the Deerfield School Board has never even acknowledged making what are patently false statements to the press, or certainly misleading, if nothing else, although I'd say patently false. Not only has it never been acknowledged, has been no apology, no nothing. And I think it's an absolute terrible example for elected officials to set. We all misspeak, and when we do, we should own it. We should apologize for it, and we should move on. I think it's an awful example to set for students that we're going to allow the titular head of the school district to behave in such a way without even having to acknowledge either a mistake or a misspeak or just saying, yeah, I said something that isn't factually correct. And I think that's very unfortunate, and I would really like to see something come of it to just clear the air. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments? Okay, we'll move on to the agenda review. We need to add a policy.
If possible, that'd be great.
Sure.
KBC would be great for first reading.
Okay, so we will add to the list of policies for first reading, KEC. Anything else? Consent. We do have a consent item. All right, sounds good.
Just, was KEC not in the list?
It was on the list.
It's
It's
not.
added.
I guess I didn't know. K, what's our policy?
We'll talk about it when we get to the policies, but it's about,
Oh, is that the one that you sent the email about?
no, but it's related.
Okay.
Same conversation.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Review of correspondence. see what we have. I think there was only 2 emails sent to the entirety of the board, both from Mr. Verville. One about the standardized testing presentation, and the other about the NHBR article. So these will both be attached to the minutes.
I think something else came in, and maybe it got missed. I did forward something else, so I'll make sure it's in the next meeting.
I just saw it back in my brain, it's about it is.
It's not the same school.
Okay, and there was something else too, I think Ms. Marchioni sent something about making materials public, wasn't that for the
I think it
one?
was last one.
Oh, that we already got that one?
Yeah,
Okay,
but we
that's
did-
You did get the one about the safety.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
But I think there was another one too.
Oh, it was, what was just handed out, it was this.
Oh, you got it too? Oh,
It's in this.
I didn't get
It's
that.
that one.
Okay, thank you.
Can we comment at all on?
On the review of correspondence?
I just, thinking back to standardized testing, I think Deerfield has always used their standardized testing, at least when I imagine, I know when I worked here, there were endless meetings that we sat there looking at the results of both our own assessments and the state assessments, and using that information to guide curriculum, to guide practice. So I don't think it's something new, and I did ask Nate about it because I did not ever remember the SAU doing a presentation. But I also wasn't on the board and I didn't come to meetings at that time. But Nate mentioned that you thought before COVID, there may have been a presentation like what was done at the last meeting.
Regular.
Yeah, and that, then COVID happened and it kind of stopped. So now it's coming back, but I don't believe that it's looking at testing as something new for Deerfield. So I know we've used it. I remember sitting through many, many
Right,
meetings.
it's one of the tools in the toolbox.
Right.
That's been used.
Yeah.
And I also think there's a difference between the testing that's done, like the math and the literacy now, where you're doing it like 3 times a year, as opposed to science where you do 2 grades, that's it, you know? So I think there's a difference between those as well, as far as the results and using them.
Yeah, I mean, one specific thing in the email that I take umbrage with is that it says it sure would be nice to have a school board that not only takes academic excellence seriously, but took actions to make it a reality for Deerfield students and family. And I just, to suggest that we don't take academic excellence seriously because we were reviewing standardized
It's
testing
an assumption.
is a very large assumption that is inaccurate. I don't think any of us would be here if we didn't take academic excellence seriously. I don't think any of us are putting all of our eggs in the standardized testing basket as the only metric of success, but it is, as Ellen said, one of the pieces of the puzzle.
And I would like to say too that, I mean, I know science is my background, so obviously I look at science a lot, but I am concerned about the science assessments. I am concerned about the way they've been dropping. And it makes me kind of wonder about what's the science instruction like. So
Yeah.
that is something that, I would personally like to know more information about.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Just because we saw a presentation, I saw it doesn't mean I'm happy with the results.
right, I think we have the presentation to inform what we're going to get more information on.
Right.
And where we want
And
to
if there's
direct
something
it.
that we can support the school, or, something needs to be done, how can we support the school? Because that's our role here, not to say, oh, you need to change it, do this and do that, but how can we support you if that's a problem?
Agreed. Anything else regarding the correspondence? Okay. There is one consent agenda item that was just handed out. So we can, if people want to discuss in non-public, we could go into non-public, or if someone wants to make a motion to accept the request, we can do that.
I'll move to accept the request.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, we can't really have a discussion. So we will say all in favor of the staff request.
You can say child rearing.
Oh, for child rearing leave. I don't know what I can say. All in favor of approving the request for child rearing leave?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Immediate business, we are on to the 25-26 draft warrant articles.
So I put the edited version in the drive for you, and we did share it with the NBC last night.
And it's edited from
Attorney,
Legal?
Yep. So he made just a couple of minor edits. He can make errors. One was just a citation. He added the word paying under unanticipated or high school tuition costs. He added the missing language that it was coming from the fund reserve. We had indicated no additional taxation, but those words weren't there that said to come from the fund balance. So he fixed that.
I think what I recall yesterday at NBC was that there was potentially an issue with the name of the trust fund.
Which one?
Number 3,
The high school.
I think that
School facility.
Oh, Amber mentioned that
Leah
that something
had-
came up to look at the title.
Leah had emailed Amber.
Okay, I'll look that up and then make sure that's fixed.
Yes. And then the other issue with the warrants is that we have to change the budget numbers. Did we not, was the conference letter in the drive?
No.
Okay.
I think so.
I can make a copy out of it.
So, if for anyone that was at NBC last night, this is not breaking news, but we received, I have somewhere,
I do
on
have here.
December 30th.
Sorry, it's only there.
Oh, I have it. Notice from the Concord School District that they were increasing the school tuition rate for next year. So there had been some miscommunication or misunderstanding about whether or not the tuition rate was set. And we thought it had been, so we based our budget on that. And then Congress said it was not, so they provided a new tuition number. So we need to update the default budget based on the new Concord tuition number. We did add at NBC last night the number to the operating budget.
So you can change it at the NBC meeting, but you can't change the default rate. We have to change the
Correct.
default.
Yeah, we don't have the authority to change the operating budget at this point. Because it's
That's what I was
passed.
gonna say, we,
Right.
so we, the NBC,
Yeah, sorry, we, the NBC, added the extra monies to the operating budget last night. We, as a school board, need to add and approve the additional money in the default budget.
that still can be changed.
It
By
still
us.
can be changed by us because
Okay.
ballots have not gone to print.
Okay,
Correct.
okay. Gotcha.
If ballots had been printed, then we could not have.
How much is the tuition for? 201,000, 389.
20,000, great.
Well, that's
The whole increase is 201,000, 389.
So it went up.
It was a couple thousand, I think, close to 2,000.
Amber said it was an 8% increase. She said it was an 8% increase.
Okay, so the letter is the, obviously per person, per student.
Yes,
Yeah.
We're saying
$20,130.
So it's pretty much Co-Brown and Concord.
They're like within a few $100.
No, 20, this is per student, but then times about 100 students, it sounds like.
It was 128.
128.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you said the number, sorry, the total number was 200, what?
201.
Yeah.
397.
Oh. 201, 389.
89 maybe, yeah. Sorry.
Okay. All right.
and the, budget is revised. Amber
On
updated the
here.
number,
Oh.
in the handout too. So that she updated the default already in the handout and the new budget number.
Not the one I have. Oh, in here, not the one in
For
the
you guys.
packet. This I got from the packet.
No, that's the one that I handed out tonight. After last night, she updated it.
Got
I didn't get a chance to look back at the contract. This feels late. Is there anything that we
Well,
can, to avoid this next year?
I looked too, and every time that I had reviewed it, it had a due date. The other two have a due date of December 1st. And the due date is not in the final agreement that was signed, and I don't know whether or not because Concord proposed, if you remember, that 3-paragraph calculation that was accepted by the board, and I have a feeling the due date for those numbers was omitted when that was rewritten. Because I said the same thing.
Yeah.
And Amber has had more conversations with the VA and Concord explaining that situation. And I spoke to the superintendent.
So since next step, we've already, last meeting or whatever, we started talking about next steps, looking ahead to reaffirming this or whatever, our next steps are gonna be, that things we should start to keep track of in terms of how we're gonna be updating future contracts.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, so what do you need from us?
So we have a new, you need to vote on whether or not you're gonna support the warrant article, each
Okay.
one, and right now you could change the budget number in the warrant article because it's different. It's still draft and hasn't become final from public hearing yet.
Yeah.
But you can have to both of those numbers.
Okay, let's do that. Okay. So. Those are,
I took Amber's budget from tonight. The number that I saw, someone should double check, was
Yeah.
20,574,506. I wasn't there last night, so I didn't write down the number, but that's what was in her budget tonight. I am sure.
Yeah, I wrote it down.
Is that right?
20,574,506.
Yep, that's, that's, thank you.
The default budget is 20,481,475.
Yep, 475.
okay. Do we need to vote on the default?
Yes.
Okay. So I will make a motion to approve the default budget number of 20,481,475.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the default budget number?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Okay, so that's approved. Do you need a motion for changing the numbers in the warrant?
Yes.
Okay,
Well, you'll be approving the warrant article with the new number that you just voted on.
okay,
Don't we do it?
yes,
So I move that we change the final budget and warrant article to 20,574,506.
Second.
Nancy?
okay, any discussion?
Just like what needs. To make sure this doesn't happen again.
Yes. It
Well,
was,
it's not in the
unwelcome
contract, then
news.
we may have no,
I
we may not have no correction.
don't think they realize, they're not on the same budget schedule that we have. They don't have, but I
the
think
whole budget thing that we do.
That's right.
They're a city.
We've always had the number over here.
this is, yeah, very, very, very late.
Would legal have to look at that contract?
Legal has reviewed it
Yeah.
many times.
There's just no cutoff date in there.
The final contract did not have a cutoff date.
I think that they are happy to work with us and understand just after the conversations we've had that we, you know, we told them we literally just passed off a budget that does not have this number in it. They, I don't think they're willing to.
This isn't finalized because the new estimated tax rate would be, that's gonna get filled in later, or do we have to have that first before we can approve it?
That's
Amber
just
will- yeah, that is
informational.
informational, it's not required, and Amber will fill those in once we.
Okay,
Okay, so now we have to vote on each warrant article, right?
yes, whether
So
we
I-
recommend.
I move that we recommend warrant article.
I will second, Sandra. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of recommending approval?
All right.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Two. This we don't need to change, right? Okay. I will move that we recommend warrant article 2. Kendra, no, just doing things
Backwards.
yeah. Keep it interesting. Okay. All in favor of recommending approval of warrant article 2?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Can we approve this one if we still have to change the name?
Yeah, I think that's just an edit that I can make.
Okay.
You can approve it as with the language of the title amended.
Okay. So I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of warrant article number 3 with the correct name of the trust, reviewed and corrected if necessary.
Second.
Oh, go ahead, Nate, that was Nate.
Kendra, Nate.
I don't wanna be a second.
All right. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approval? Aye. Any opposed? All right. I'll make a motion to recommend approval of warrant article number 4. Okay. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of recommending approval of warrant article number 4?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. I think Dan Holdridge is gonna come to one of our next 2 meetings, I'm not sure which. I offered him either, to just talk about the deliberative process, decide who's gonna present which warrant articles, go over that kind of logistical stuff.
Does he have a copy of the draft yet?
I sent it to him, yes.
How do you do?
We'll have to give him an updated draft, but, or the final. Okay. We are on to school safety. I don't know who wants to take it away.
Yeah, I don't know if it's better to just have you ask questions that you might have, or if you, and we've certainly, knowing that this was on the agenda for this week, we've talked about it as an administration. Patty comes to leadership every Friday, and we had a conversation about the different things that, might help you to understand safety in the building. So I'll just kind of start, and then if you have questions, please.
Yeah.
And obviously, Mr. Grief can add in anything he would like. So DCS has a crisis team. that we have in place. Our 2 teachers that are on the board, and another teacher would know that, the crisis team includes the nurse, the IT folks, administration, guidance is involved as well, and
Sometimes
maintenance, or director of facilities. And the crisis team has been together for years. Years ago, I don't know when Patty might know when the EOP became an expectation for all staff. I don't know if it was.
Part of it, yeah. There was always a plan, but then we started having to turn it into the Department of Education. We'd upload it to the portal, and Homeland Security
Reviews
and approves.
Emergency operations.
Correct. And the emergency operation plan is basically a plan that's at the state level. There are, it is reviewed every year, like Patty said, and it is reviewed with the school team every 3 years. They try to get to schools, take a look at your plan and make any updates or any suggestions that they feel would be important to include if it's not included. So we've gotten a lot of feedback from them over the years. That feedback is a limited release because we can't share all that information with, it's not a community.
Sort of reveal insight and any recommendation they made.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you can make the assumption. So we're due this year. You haven't had
Yeah,
yours yet,
March.
right? Yeah, we're due this year, and that 3-year visit from Homeland Security allows us to apply for grant funds when they release those safety grants that Chris applies for and comes to talk to us about. And if you don't have yours updated, you can't apply for those funds. So Chris has been fantastic about going after those as soon as they're released, and they're done. Sometimes they're first come, first serve when there's leftover money. Otherwise, it's an application process, and as long as you meet the criteria and put in for something to be approved, they will, try to give everybody some. Sometimes they run out, and sometimes there's an open for a second round that there's a little bit left. So you can assume that the safety grant and the improvements that Chris had made is because either there was a recommendation from Homeland Security that said, hey, you should think about, doing this. And not that it's required, but this would be something that would help beef things up. So when Chris comes and adds cameras, or, they may say like, oh, is your whole property covered? Oh, hey, is there, okay, we should put in for a couple more cameras. I'm just making things up as an example. What else? Oh, we did the whole entrance down below. Those of us have been around a while. It was sort of free will entry to the school, and we loved that, and parents loved that, and they would come to bring the cupcakes to their classroom. And the sad state of the world right now is everything's locked down. We now have a buzzer system. Can't get into the school, have to come into the little entryway. That's blocked and protected as well.
And that's like bulletproof glass.
Unfortunately, I don't think it's bulletproof.
No.
Oh, no, we're not going to say that.
It's shadow resistant, right?
We did put window film.
And
Yeah.
there's film in the cafeteria now. Yeah.
Oh,
So
the first floor.
there's been, and those are really costly items. So having our plan updated and having them come to visit every year gives us access to those funds. So there's been a lot of improvements. Exterior doors have been replaced. Off the top of my head, but there's been lots of improvements.
Yeah, we've upgraded the telephone system because that's our
Yeah,
speaker
911
system.
compliance.
Yep.
Walkie-talkie.
Walkie-talkies.
Yeah, there's,
we had funds for radios to make sure all the food people in the building have the radios.
and that we could communicate to
Channels.
emergency personnel if need be. For a broad sense, when I first started, there were no cameras. There were only a few cameras, and now we have them all over the building. Every single hallway has them. Cafeteria is covered. Every exit and entrance is covered. You can see outside through the playground. You can see on the side that also the camera in the front of the building. Somebody had brought up an issue about, they go to the door and they ring the doorbell and, you just let them in, and that's not the case. We have a buzzer system. Our front office staff know pretty much every parent or guardian that comes to this building, and if they can't see them on the little camera that's on the phone that we have, they have a computer screen with the entire entranceway that you can see who's coming up to the building. And if they need, why they would need to get in. If they don't recognize the person, they say, can I help you? I'm here to drop off Joey's sneakers for basketball today. Okay, let them in. And like Patty said, they come right into the building or right into the portico, vestibule, thank you, and cannot get into any part of the building. The door to get into the office is now a key fob. That was a security upgrade that was made this 2 summers ago. I think that was 2 summers ago, maybe this past summer. It all blends together. But that nobody can get in the building without a fob through the office. That door used to just be locked, but now we have a fob to get in. So those are some of the broad security measures that are in place in the broad things. Like I said, we have our emergency operation plan. Many of you know Denny Gregg from town. She was the emergency management. She had a couple of hats, but when I came on board 7 years ago, she really was instrumental in bridging that connection between the town and the school. And I don't know if for a while now, since Denny's been gone, that position has been unfilled. I reached out to a few folks in town, fire chief, police chief, fire assistant chief Dubiansky, because they are invited to come in March when the state comes to do a review of our safety plan. They'll do an entire walk around the building. They take picture, the whole thing. They do a very thorough job. And I think it's one of them responded that they thought somebody was in place in January 1st. So that I don't know. I've not been informed of anybody in that emergency management position. So that remains vacant. And that is a person that we would utilize in our emergency operation plan. They help, bridge that gap between community, town, and school. So the emergency planning team includes, like I said, members of the crisis team, Deerfield Police, Fire, and Rescue. In terms of to get a little kind of tighter in terms of the security in the building, we have every classroom in the building has an emergency procedures flip book. And if you're a teacher, you know the flip book. When we were asked to take a look at some of the safety things in the building, the administration did sit and look at the emergency procedures and realized that the last time it was updated, I think it was actually created in 2017. So we took some time to review what the procedures are, update them. There wasn't a ton that needed to be updated in terms of the different drills that are practiced, but the drills that are highlighted on here are things like reverse evacuation, shelter in place, a lockdown, drop, cover, and hold, evacuation or a fire drill, secure campus, scan campus, and a site evacuation reunification has been added because we would need to know if we had to leave the building, evacuate the building, and go to George B. White or the town hall. There are steps in here as to what those steps would look like, as well as what it might look like when we get over there. We do have a lot of new staff that, I'll say that all school staff are trained, not necessarily, they have this information, they work with, we do as much training as we possibly can, but all school staff know what to do in an emergency situation. To get a little tighter into that, it was mentioned that the doors are being propped open. Mr. Grieve did a spot check. I don't know if
Yeah, so essentially just looking at the doors randomly throughout the whole, fall, and just picking random days. And at no point did I see any doors ever propped open. There was one case that a student put the door open at dismissal time. And that was the only one that was ever found. So no staff are propping open doors or anything like that.
Right.
And
Do
so
the doors have any sort of alarm or notification system, if they are propped open?
That's a good question.
no, they don't. No. And every door is essentially utilized all day long.
Mm.
So there's not, the only doors that maybe isn't utilized every day is the preschool room. But in the spring and fall, it is. So it's like they go out there and they'll use that side door,
And they're locked from the outside?
Yeah. Yes. Correct. Yeah. So, but yeah, essentially every door is utilized all day long. So there's not, besides the loading dock, I guess that would be the only one.
The one email that we received mentioning the door being propped open, that hallway is the hallway leading from the cafeteria. I don't know, many of you know that hallway. So there's lost and found coats hanging all on the wall. And there is a staff member that stands right there. We have put an email out to all staff to say, if you are on morning duty or afternoon duty and you are near a door, please be mindful of, stand close to that door, because they're kind of managing the whole hallway there. So they're watching kids coming down the stairs, kids coming down this hallway. So we have asked people to be diligent about making sure that the doors are not propped open. Like Mr. Grief said, he did do a spot check. That doesn't mean that we've been in school for 76 days now. So very well, they may have been propped open, but staff are not propping them open. They have been instructed time and time again. Chris has kicked those rocks. He's throwing them back into the pond. They somehow make their way back up and we throw them back. And but kids will definitely kick the if there's a rock there, they'll kick it so they don't have to keep opening and closing. And that's only during arrival in the morning, and dismissal in the afternoon. Those doors are all points of entry are unlocked for a short period of time.
Yeah, and I was interested in that, and I asked you on a Friday how long it takes, because you figure there's over 600 people to get in this building in the morning, and how long that took, and I was shocked.
Oh, speedy.
Yeah. Less than 10 minutes. Buses are about 5 minutes. We get everybody in, doors are secured, and then the other points of entry
Car riders are
by 10 of usually.
maybe 53 after.
Mhm.
So
Depends on what Blue Zone's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. They would have been 3 hours in the morning.
Yeah, they have a lot of
very well.
Mhm. And we do have students out in the modulars that do come in and they come in and out of the building. That's our school. We have our modulars. We have kids out there.
Unfortunate.
It is. And the teachers take a lot of time to have them practice that. They spend time talk about the safety of especially crossing that road, because there have been times maybe a delivery truck does get by and that has happened, but kids stop and look and make sure. We have, knock on wood, not had an incident, but you just can't be guaranteed, right? I wish that we didn't have to do that, but we do. And the modulars do not have bathrooms or sinks in them. We do have water in there so they can get their water, but we do have cameras right there at that door. We have cameras that can see the modulars from all angles. And I was going to say something else, but I lost my train of thought. But
I just want to ask a question. Can you explain? I was wondering why the modulars went from like
that was a recommendation from the NELMS
NELMS.
committee,
Mhm.
probably NELMS, New England League of Middle Schools, to have the fifth grade be in the building to bridge that gap between fifth grade to middle school. So that was a recommendation. What year was that? 2018. So
it took us a couple of years to to act on that, basically, but
seems like, you feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
Not that you want any.
Another safety point is that if a student comes late that's out in the modulars, the front office staff alerts the classroom teacher that the student is on their way out, so they know to be at the door to let them in. So there's
So the
never.
modular doors are also locked.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
The idea of some sort of, now that we have this road over there, a gate or something to close during the day, has that ever come up in conversations?
Yeah, it's come up quite a few times. Unfortunately, we have deliveries at any point of the day and garbage at any point. And we've attempted to work with these companies to put them on a schedule, but
So deliveries, not like Amazon deliveries, but
No.
deliveries that would, like food,
fuel, food, garbage, paper. Yeah, anything with the loading dock, things of that nature.
And that was a concern even when we first moved into this building when the playground arrived, because the playground when we first arrived in this building was the parking lot over there because we didn't have a playground. Yeah. So when we finally got a playground, that has always been a concern. And I remember talking to food people, kitchen staff, and saying, why are these trucks coming back? Why can't they come before school or after school? And they said, we can't control the deliveries like
Yeah.
that. How long has it been though that, like, cars are driving?
This is the second year.
And that was, it used to be there was 2 lines in the front
Correct.
circle, but then there was, I think, a medical emergency, and there was, a traffic jam with it. They couldn't get an ambulance through because there was 2 lines of traffic for drop off. If you did a single line of traffic, cars would be out onto the road.
Well, they're already on the road.
Yeah, we could all fit just in the front.
Right.
But then COVID happened and. kids
Yeah,
got
yeah.
off.
Our drop off used to be in the back when I first started in 2011, 12, or 11, 12, and it was roughly 50 to 60 cars max.
Got it.
And then COVID, now we're at, I would say, average again 150 to 160 a day. So.
So
150 to 160 cars.
So a gate can't go way down because of deliveries, but could a gate go up by the modulars? Because the delivery people can, they can turn around and go back out the way they came. And, teachers, I mean, we know when those trucks are coming, we hear them and you go
Teachers are
flying
very-
up and a teacher stands in the middle of the road and all that.
Very
But
careful.
if it's cars, like I don't know how difficult it would be, or even just cones, something
Yeah.
so nobody is driving past
Mhm.
the modular.
We do have cones out there.
Mm.
There are cones.
Yes, there
out
are cones out there.
Okay.
Yes. Hmm.
All right,
So.
And delineators, those tall.
okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
I haven't been out for a while. So.
And I think an issue too is the fire department not being able to access the whole road.
Yeah, they
If,
talked about a gate and they weren't.
yeah, they were
Okay,
not.
But cones that could work.
Yeah, exactly.
At least it would be something.
A few cars run over cones.
Well, I know, but I
No,
I
yeah, yeah.
want to,
There's a visual.
Mhm.
yeah, a visual there.
Yes.
That hopefully
Hmm.
it would be enough for people, but
Yeah.
at least something so during the day you don't have.
Hmm. And we do put the cones out the back. The delivery drivers get out and move the cones
Yeah.
to get in. So they and that helps with that situation
Right,
of
correct.
you can see that, it
Yeah.
slows them down and teachers can see. And
So I had a question. I'm not trying to be an alarmist or anything like that. I don't know what the procedure is for your what do you call it, in your left hand. For the teachers, right? Oh, I'm sorry.
This is
That
my
one
right
is right.
hand.
This
This is left.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have any idea what any of that is about. I'm not sure if it would be the same procedures as when you guys worked here.
pretty
But,
much.
and again, not to be an alarmist,
Mm.
but has there ever been any type of a talk for staff or teachers to be armed?
that has come up.
That's a discussion.
Yeah.
that's come up.
Yep.
I'm just curious.
Yes,
that's all. I'm
yeah,
not-
that has been discussed, and in the years I've been on this team, not a single staff member has ever considered that to be even an option. Yeah.
I just didn't know if it ever came up.
Right? Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. It has.
A couple things about these procedures. Teachers have been asked are always asked to review them, take a look at them. It is step by step what you're supposed to do, what it would sound like if an administrator or anybody, all staff are empowered to pick up the phone. That's why our phone systems change, because you can pick up the phone from anywhere and do a page all in the building. You can pick up the phone from anywhere and call 911 from any phone in the building. And so a couple of years, actually my first year, 2018, we did do the ALICE training with our local police department. Since then, many staff have come and gone. But one of the hard things about I shouldn't say hard things about lockdown, but one of the things about a lockdown is there is notification. We do bring the police in for a lockdown when we're doing something like that. They do go around the building and check the doors and see if they can get in. Our doors are also locked from the inside. You can just stand here and flip it closed. You do not have to. Back in the day when I was teaching, you had to open the door, figure out the keys, get it in there, to lock it back in. It was precious time that was wasted, but now you just have to go over the door, lock it, and it's done. And every single door in the building is equipped with that lock. So police do come for lockdowns, and teachers are, you get a lot of, because I notify families when we're having the lockdown, notify families after the lockdown is completed. I always have included information that parents and guardians can talk to their children because they are scary. It is a scary event, and we have preschool all the way up to 8th grade, and it's scary on lots of levels for lots of kids.
Scary as a teacher.
100%.
You're in there with the kids and you see the door handle.
My first lockdown I ever did, I was the only one in my classroom because my kids were at an IA. And I still had to lock the room down and I still had to go sit. I'm sitting there by myself and I knew it was Mary Mahoney doing the doorknob. I was still petrified because it was so quiet. It was eerie. Are they still, you don't do those every year, is it every year?
What's your schedule? Could you just like kind of walk us through what your schedule is for what you do for practice drills? Like how often you do things?
So once a month we have a practice drill of some sort or another. Oftentimes the fire drills are in the warmer times of the month because you have.
Fire drills have to be every month. I can't remember.
Yes, you have. Well, you have to do.
Yeah, they can be replaced. The fire chief is willing to replace every now and
The
then,
colder
like the
months.
colder months with like a shelter in place or a lockdown. Yeah.
You're not allowed to do only fire drills. That was the change. Like you can't say your practice drills every month were all fire drills. So you have to choose
So you
your
mix
mix
it
up
up.
as well.
And the problem with lockdown is it's just antiquated. So gone are the days where everyone's hiding in the corner. Like the idea is to be out of sight of the window.
Right.
But then if someone were to get in, you have to be able to, your kids aren't sitting down. They should be standing up, ready to run or fight, etc. So
And isn't it too like if you have like in preschool or kindergarten, you might take the option to actually take the kids out.
100%. And all our teachers know that they have that power to,
And I have a ladder for my.
right.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, every teacher is aware that they are empowered to make that decision if there was any kind of event.
The
like-
training is somebody is hopefully alerting the staff, if there's an armed intruder, which is different lockdown can happen for lots of reasons, right? But there is armed intruder information as well that have the Alice steps, and anybody's encouraged to get on the phone, especially if I hate, this is God for all the things, right? But if there were somebody in the gym and somebody was up here in the 8th grade hallway, we hear them in the gym. So, okay, I can get my kids at least down to the 6th grade wing. We, like Brian said, we do empower people to make those decisions. And there's not a teacher in this building that would try to make that decision,
And also the cameras would allow for, there's Ms. Withy, myself, and Mr. Layton have access to all the cameras.
And we have done that.
So, yep.
Onto the cameras.
Have you done the one leaving? You mentioned that like when we bus the kids
Yes.
and actually practice.
Offsite,
Yeah.
that is scheduled for this year.
So
Mhm.
you do like every other year.
Um, It's we try to do once every 3 years. Mhm. It's just part of the problem is busing.
Yeah.
That is the biggest,
It's worse now.
it's worse now. That it's been, yeah. So
But if Dale had to, they would. They are ready to roll. If I were to call them and say, we're evacuating, get here, they would pull every bus driver they had to get here. Same with the police or the fire. We've had a situation where the fire had to come last February vacation. Thank you very much, Patty, for being here.
And there was an evacuation Friday night.
Friday night,
I'm
I
sorry.
was not here.
Chairlift. And the police and the fire are here within seconds. So is MUR, but they are here within the police. Police get here fast. They get here first. And we had fire trucks come from all over. They are ready to roll they'll be here within minutes. I appreciate, and we appreciate that for sure. Something also was brought up about the fingerprinting and the volunteer. That is a school board policy. There are other schools in the district that do require fingerprinting. So I am happy to have us revisit that policy if that is something that the board feels needs to be done. Fingerprinting is only done once, and that is a state rule, a DOE rule. That's not a Deerfield rule. So if fingerprinting is once you
The
know,
department did start doing, new teachers, or when they first get their certification, but it doesn't carry over to us, and that's the frustrating part about the background checks is I am legally obligated to shred the results immediately, so I can put somebody on a list and say, I email the principal and say, this teacher's all set to start, this pair is all set to start, because I'm the final step in the process. But if they're gonna go to a different school, even though they were just fingerprinted in your neighboring school, you have to do it all over again, because we're not allowed to share any information, so it's a process. Other schools with volunteers, we sort of put the word out to parents and say, if you're even thinking about going on a field trip or doing anything, just get it done, so that you're on the volunteer list, and then we maintain the list, and as long as they are in the school volunteering at least once a year, they don't have to keep going.
So do we require that here? No.
The board made the choice
Last
years
2 years
ago,
ago?
yeah.
I was on the board when we talked about it last
Yeah.
time. We came up with it.
I honestly advocate for that. Our other schools do it. I know there's not as much volunteering as there used to be in the schools, but if you're having volunteers with your students on field trips or doing anything, you can require that they have the background check. Because otherwise you're trying to figure out who the designated volunteers are versus the non-designated volunteers, because that's the language. You have to decide who your designated volunteers are. And the board made that decision that they would have a badge, so you knew, like, if you're in here helping the nurse on screening days, you're a designated volunteer, you've been background checked, and you can take kids to and from. Whereas a regular, typical volunteer could not do that alone. But I don't like
I think the differentiation we made at the time of that discussion, if I recall correctly, was that there's plenty of volunteers who are, let's say, in a classroom, surrounded by people all day, with the teacher right there, and then I think the decision at the time was to not require that situation, but if there's any chance that somebody would be alone with a student, then we would get there's the, like you said, the designated.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. So, I mean, maybe that's something that we should definitely think about, because I agree, on a field trip, you do break up the kids into small groups and you get one adult to like 4 kids. I mean, that's obvious, that's just the way it works.
Mhm.
So maybe it does make sense that in that situation, that person needs to be.
I feel like there was language saying that would be an instance where that person would be fingerprinted.
Yeah,
I think,
But
I
who's the
don't
control?
recall the policy.
Yeah.
but I do like the option of saying, putting out there, hey, if you would like to volunteer in the school, this is our process to become a designated volunteer, and then you have people to choose from, so you don't have to worry every single time something happens. But I'm wondering about the cost.
you know, I wrote that down. There is an
Yeah.
expense. It costs about
It's cheaper for
$45 or
volunteers.
$50. Oh, is it okay?
I think it's 25.
But we do reimburse them.
So yes, there is a cost.
But it's a worthwhile
There's
cost.
a cost to not do it.
It's a worthwhile cost. Yeah, it's a big cost to not do it.
Currently, we have our all of our sports coaches are always fingerprinted. New teachers, any new school staff, you don't start until your fingerprints are done. There's some schools that don't do that. You get fingerprinted. I know Mr. Greaves' wife works at lots of schools, and you get fingerprinted and you can walk through the door the next day. They don't wait to tell the results. It depends on where you go in New Hampshire, live free or die.
And I think too, not that we know, so I lived in Deerfield, I knew families, and that doesn't mean I didn't know, there might have been a family I didn't know the other side of.
Mhm.
But I think back, we knew everybody, we
Mhm.
knew stuff, but a lot of the teachers now don't live in Deerfield, so their connection with families is just as teacher.
And there's a lot of new people that
Yeah.
come into town and they're like, hey, I volunteer to go on this field trip. We don't know those people from all over the world. So, but even people that you've known for a long time,
You
always
don't know.
So,
That's, yeah.
so how do we go about then? Is that a new policy that we did?
There is a policy, so I could put it back on the agenda, and we could start with the first reading and talk about.
Yeah, I would suggest that we do that. What do
Yeah,
you guys think?
fine.
Yeah, I think so.
So, especially in this day and age, unfortunately.
Other questions about school safety that you just
Keep filling the doors for rocks.
He
does.
He does, he throws
Back when
them.
I was here and everything, and it was like,
Mm,
don't put rocks in the doors.
I
And I'm,
recess.
yeah,
I
and
recess.
no. And I was good at kicking
mhm.
That's what people are taught to do. It doesn't matter who's waiting to get back in. If you see it, you
Exactly.
kick it out.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter.
Because they can always go around to the front
Right.
and come in.
They're not standing there at the
Yes.
door.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure. I don't, if you have any questions after, thinking about, like you said, I don't, three of the members know everything I'm talking about in terms of the emergency. They know when it's time for, a secure campus, they know what to do. Still to this day would know what to do. Yeah.
Except like you said, it's changed some now. We used to
Mm,
all huddle and hide, and now they're saying
It's a little more
that's,
common sense.
yeah.
It's
Mm.
Yeah.
common sense.
Mhm.
yeah, they've learned a lot over the years for unfortunate,
Yeah,
unfortunate
Yes,
events.
unfortunately.
Mhm. And that's another thing I'll add. Patty is so good about debriefing after an incident. We've never had to, we have not because of a lockdown or anything like that, or armed intruder, but after any kind of the septic system last year, we had to evacuate the building, or we had to send kids home. Right, that all happened, and everybody knows their role and falls right into place. And I one of the updates I did here is what as a teacher, what are you supposed to do? As a paraeducator, what are you supposed to do? As the kitchen, just to remind them, to refresh their memories. But I know they would know what to do. That's the thing. They don't have to read anything. But Patty always debriefs after any kind of event, and we pull as many people from the crisis team as we can to say, what went well, what didn't go so well, what will we, is there anything we'll do differently, and take note of those. Anything we forgot, right? Yep.
What is the procedure or process for notifying parents? I know there have been incidents and people have certain feelings about whether or not we should have been notified. Can you just walk through that sort of process?
Of
I mean,
course.
we talk, the first thing we do is talk and try to process what's happening quickly. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts depending on what type of event you're dealing with, because you're sometimes doing investigations. If it's an immediate threat to safety, then I don't care what else is going on. You feel it's an immediate threat to safety, you do what you need to do to get, put everybody into full mode, and then you get word to parents as quickly as you can. There might be a little bit of a downgrade of a threat where there was a threatening thing that happened, and so we're going to let you know about that and what we did to mitigate the danger. If it's not a threat to a school, we're not going to send something home every time something happens. And I know how hard it is. I talk to parents all the time who, something happens to their child and they want information. They want to know what was done. They want to know that their kids are safe. And you can only give a certain amount of information. And that's why they have the FERPA, Federal Rights to Privacy. We are not allowed to talk about other students, and you're not allowed to talk. This is something that special ed is, comes off our tongues. If the cell size is smaller than 10, if it's smaller than 10, I think Jess is a little more liberal than I am. She might do 7 or 8.
7.
Yeah. It's always been 10, and you can identify who it is, then you can't talk about it. Even if you don't use their name, you can't say a student, because everyone knows who that student is, and you can't talk about that. Other parents can, the parent of the child can, anyone but us. We are prohibited from that. So
And that includes things like disciplinary actions. We can't
absolutely
share what the end result is for a particular student. And I recognize that that's frustrating.
It's really hard. Yeah.
We don't even share if,
I don't even
say
know.
two students have a fight, we refer to the other student as student A or student B.
Mm.
We do not talk
Right.
bring up the other kid's name.
And they may find out.
I was gonna say,
Which
my
is-
student
that's
comes and
fine.
tells me,
Right.
Mhm.
I tell her everything.
But that's what, you can tell a parent, well, since you seem to know everything, you'll know tomorrow when your child reports back what the thing is in school. People will find out, but we're not allowed.
right, we as the school
We
cannot
have to protect the
disclose.
privacy.
Right. private information about students.
There's very small number of events that occur that we are allowed to reach that, and that's if people. Even the police, we can only give the police a limited amount of information. If they want to come and, kind of know something about a student or a family, we can't give them information.
Right, they have to
There
go
has
do
to be a
their.
subpoena and a court involved, unless they come and there's an immediate threat, and then we give them everything they need to help us.
Mhm.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying. Okay, any other questions, comments about school safety? Anything else that people would like to know? Okay,
I just have one little request.
yeah,
That if anyone has concerns, that they reach out to the right people. It's so upsetting when the game of telephone happens and something happens and all of a sudden it just goes from 0 to 60. And I just wish that people would contact the right people. We can always give you a lot of information, but just don't make assumptions, because this, of all places, this place cares so much about students and their safety and will do anything within their power to make sure that kids are safe.
So how do the parents know who to reach out to?
Well, they should reach out to the principal if they have a
The
question,
principal, okay.
yes. I mean, Mr. Grief too. It's okay if you don't.
I'm available
Administration.
sometimes.
Mhm.
Basically, you're saying don't go to social media.
Yeah, like don't, I mean,
Yeah.
we love your children, but sometimes they make things up. Sometimes they stretch things.
My son would make things. I'm gonna throw a whole year not believing anything he said. I tested everything, I called parents, whatever, to find out. But you learned a lesson.
yeah. People are, reach out to me and that's fine, but I should not be the first contact if you have, big concerns about something at the school.
Mhm.
I mean, I obviously forward things on, but Principal Whitty is the best first contact in most situations.
And a lot of people did reach out. It was last at the incident that you're referencing, or that we're sort of underlyingly talking about. And it's you can't reach back out to everybody. So that's, once we knew that was happening, we knew that we needed to put a message out, a generalized message to inform people of what we knew.
Yeah.
We're not withholding information because I don't even
And
know
it's
how to
hard
finish
to
that
try
sentence.
in the middle of something, you try so hard to word it and think about what you're gonna say and how you're gonna say it, and best intentions, and it's not enough, it's not right, you should have said this, you should have said that, it's never the intention to not be transparent.
Fortunately and unfortunately, it's not a situation we've dealt with 100 times, so we had to
Mm,
sort of form notice
mm,
to send out.
mm.
Okay, thank you guys very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. We will move on to board reports. There is no one from PTO here, so we will just hear from principal's report if she wants to talk about the PTO.
Yeah, I do have a few things in the PTO executive board. Was there nothing?
Executive board.
So
We-
what
there is
happened?
one.
You're first.
A lot happening in the
Okay.
PSAU. So, we will be looking for a superintendent. And, the board met. Yeah. So, as you know, the SAU has 2 superintendents. And, the executive board and full board, decided that that would be the model that they would continue, that there would still be 2 superintendents. And the reason for that, because it's come up, people have asked, is it really necessary? Is it a way to save money? We have 5 districts, and within Pembroke, there's 3 schools. So that's a lot to cover for one superintendent. Also, I remember way back when there was just one, and we used to say Deerfield was the black sheep because we never saw a superintendent. It was very rare that the superintendent made it out here. there were towns that, when there was one superintendent, they had assistants that took some schools, and those that had the assistants did not necessarily like having just the assistant. They felt they needed to have the superintendent as well. So, after that discussion among everybody, and kick in the fun, they decided that they would do the same model.
Can I actually just elaborate
Yep.
just a little bit on part of what they were expressing about going back, I don't know how far, 10 years when there was just one superintendent, it wasn't, they just didn't like having the assistant, but it was part of, in a meeting like this, having somebody who has answers at the
Right.
table
Correct.
is very important to having an efficient meeting and making things happen in a time.
Right.
School board business is already drawn out so slow that being able to actually have decisions and having
Correct.
somebody at the table
That's a
who
better
knows,
way of explaining
Mhm.
it.
rather
Thank you.
than the assistant having to go back to talk to the superintendent, and that was less efficient. And so having two superintendents, having somebody at the table is much more efficient from get things done. as a group.
Thank you. A much better explanation than mine. Has it been posted? I know they wanted, so it has been posted and the process will begin. Candidates.
Will the executive board be sort of doing interviews, or is it the full board?
The full board made the decision. Every board wanted and should have representation because it's the full board that hires the superintendent. So they nominated the executive board to be the reps on the committee because they're already, one from each town makes up the executive board, so they're gonna be on the initial committee. And then obviously, once there's candidates chosen to interview, and that will turn into a bigger process for everyone to get input.
Would it be worth just confirming with our exec rep that you want and have the time to do this? I mean, I think we did say in the meeting that it could be swapped out. If there's somebody else who had more time than you.
I may need someone to do it.
Do you want a backup?
Something I don't want to say publicly, but
And it really should be someone that can be at every meeting, because you don't want to see one candidate and not another.
Right, so I was going to discuss with Kendra. It's not that I don't want to.
I'm happy
There's
to be the backup unless
Yeah.
someone else is really desiring it. I know you've been through the process before. If you're interested.
Easy.
Okay, maybe they'll schedule them in the next month and a half.
Maybe, it's possible.
The intention is to finish in March because we know that we may have different board members on.
March what?
Well, because the board discussed the fact that elections would come and it may not be the same group of people who are going through this
Right.
process.
All right, it's fine.
Mhm.
I will let Nate off the hook. I'm happy to.
If you need me, I can. Yeah.
You can pinch it.
Yeah, I certainly could. So if we can, I would be willing to do it if you wanted, if we think it could be done.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
The applications are due January 20th,
Okay,
so
okay. And would it just be Wednesday meetings? We'll set up the schedule.
there will be a schedule. set.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really have a hard time with Wednesday, so I probably could have some flexibility. Really much.
Yeah, I'm not in charge of this process.
No, you're not.
This round.
Right, you do both,
It's
so.
nice if, I mean, he has the experience, that's
Right.
cool, and he also has the education.
Okay,
If you would like to, and I can pinch it for you if you need to.
okay, I'm happy to do it.
Okay, I'll let Carrie know.
Okay.
Carrie is the chair right now of the
Okay.
executive board.
Sure. Yeah. happy.
Anything else from executive board?
Also, they'll be looking for IT. as
Yes.
Josh is
the
leading.
director.
And there's been some other, I have to be honest, I haven't kept track of all the changes of just payroll and this and that.
Yep.
There's been,
Our accounts payable clerk is gone, and our payroll clerk would like that position, so we're gonna advertise for a payroll clerk. She knows the complexities of that job and has agreed to continue to do payroll until we can find a replacement. It's nice having people who have moved around, but they're still in the vicinity enough that they can train and get us through.
You have a new assistant.
I do, yeah, executive. Let's see.
I think that's it.
Cool. Sounds good. Principal's report.
And, Ms. Libby, I was not at the CRB meeting, so if you
Oh,
want
okay,
to
I'll get my
discuss
notes
it
up.
in
Of course.
report, I couldn't make the last
Let me see if there's, I'll just get my notes up real quick. So this will be short and sweet because it covers December 5th through January 8th, and we had a holiday break in between there, so you're welcome. But I will tell you that Tuesday, December 10th, we had our band and chorus winter concert, winter performance, which was wonderful. Wednesday, December 11th, the PTO sponsored Harlem Wizards came to Deerfield Community School and did 2 wonderful presentations, or entertaining assemblies, I should say. The kids loved it. I've got a couple of basketballs to give away at some point. Their focus was about being kind and kindness and bullying and, just helping each other out when need be. And also to have a little bit of fun. Friday, December 13th, we had a middle school dance, a holiday edition. And Monday, December 16th was CRB, and I'll get those notes up for you in a moment. Tuesday, December 17th was our elementary winter concert. Thursday, December 19th, we had a mentor-mentee meeting. We still carry on that program, even though we don't have a mentor facilitator in the building, and they do meet once a month and have specific things to talk about. Friday, December 20th, we had right before the holiday break, we had our all-school meeting, our monthly all-school meeting, and our 6th graders hosted that meeting. Then we had our holiday break. Before the holiday break, I do want another PTO shout out. They came in every single day as a countdown to the holiday and delivered a little treat or a little treasure in everybody's mailboxes with a little poem counting down to the last day. It was a wonderful little thing. There was lots of oohs and ahs that came out of the mail room every day. So appreciate the PTO for taking the time and doing that for us. And then we returned on Thursday, January 2nd for Happy New Year 2025. And really there has not been anything outside of basketball.
And we started Classroom of the Week.
And thank you for remembering
One of your favorite things.
It is one of my things. Classroom of the Week, for those that might be new to the board, we've done this for a couple of years now, where every week a classroom is chosen to be the Classroom of the Week, and I go in on Monday mornings and do announcements from the classroom, so the kids see kind of behind the scenes of what happens with the announcements, and they help with the at Deerfield Community School, we inspire each student to think, learn, achieve, create, and care. They help with the pledge, and then I stay for their community circle in the morning. Sometimes I'm in charge of the greeting and the activity. I usually try to visit an advisory or a magnet sometime during the week as well. And then Mr. Grieve and Mrs. McConnell visit the class every single day. Somebody visits the class. Mr. Grieve is famous for bringing his Oreo cookies in for snack. Mrs. McConnell is famous for bringing her fruit snacks in to class.
Right. She's very much healthier than me.
And they also join some sort of, whether it's a writing lesson or, a reading lesson or an activity that's going on in the classroom, they'll usually join. And then I'm the bookend, and I go in on Fridays and do a read aloud with the class. So that is something we usually started more towards the beginning of the year, but first we didn't this year. So we started this week was the first week. Mrs. Erin Chase was our first class of the week, a kindergarten teacher. So that was a lot of fun. Thank you for remembering that.
No problem.
And that will carry through. We'll be able to visit every single classroom through the course of the remainder of the year. Every classroom, every week is a different classroom. And they usually do a little write-up in the bridge about something that their class is working on. Sometimes have some pictures to share. So I think that was everything. CRB. Got it. On it. Sorry. $24. 12/16. That was the date, right? Yep. So we really did a review of all of the, we try to schedule a curriculum committee meeting prior to a CRB meeting so that all of the curriculum committees can get together to do any kind of work that they need to do. Every Wednesday, our staff stay after for Professional Development Wednesday. And so at the CRB meeting, there's usually an update. As you know, ELA is up for renewal this year for their thank you. Ooh, I was going to say contract curriculum, and so they are hoping to bring something forward to this. So first, it will go to CRB. CRB will provide readers for the curriculum to go through and read and make sure that everything is, where it needs to be. They're pretty thorough, and then they'll bring their ELA curriculum to the school board. As you know, we do have 2 new reading. Our 4 through 8 reading specialists this is her second year, and our K to 3 reading interventionist and eventually reading specialist is also new. So they're hoping to be able to get everything. They've done a lot of work. They did a lot of work last year as well, leading up to this year. So stay tuned for that. But that will be coming. Yeah.
Do you mean work isn't a lot of changes to it, or?
They have done a lot of changes. They've updated with some of the science of reading research and have tried to include some of that information. They've also worked with Amy Parkinson on implementing a mechanics and a grammar competency. So there'll be some work on that. We're also going to take the year to work on some indicators for that so that we can put it on the report card. And let me see, they're doing a total refresh of the curriculum. We have a new writing program, as you know, so they have put a lot of work into it. Let me see if there's anything else. Amy Parkinson did visit, when we did curriculum committees, she visited our science committee, with our science committee to help them because they're looking at, I think she mentioned this when she was here doing the data presentation, but they're looking at doing some work with the NGSS standards and combining the cross-cutting. Can you tell me what that is? We have 2 science. Thank you.
Patterns.
Yes. Okay.
Systems, yeah.
So they're looking to combine those cross-cutting.
When is that one up for renewal?
That's
Next year.
good.
I think it's next year.
Okay.
Or is it next year?
Yeah.
That would be a great.
Yeah. Yes. And wellness, health, PE. I know PE just did their curriculum, but Shape America did release some new standards in the spring. So our curriculums go through a 7-year cycle. So they will be taking the next couple of years to try to see where those fit into their current curriculum as they work on their updates. So library, as you know, put a book materials selection policy they worked at the SAU level, and I'm thinking that's we did review the AI policy and talking about AI in the classrooms, making sure that teachers are modeling AI with the kids on how to use it appropriately. Brooke Ann Petroselli has done a ton of work with kids using Magic School and really trying to teach kids how to use AI to help them, not to use it as just a tool that they plug something in and spits something out. And we are looking for a community member. I believe we have 1 community member. We usually have 3.
On the CRB.
Yes. And I think that we have put it out in the bridge. We will do that again. I know that there's a school board member that it's going to be done in March. So I don't know, you might be bored. So bored. 3rd Monday of the month. So yeah. Okay. I think that covers it. You're welcome. Of course.
Thank you.
Mhm.
MBC update. We just met last night. The public hearing for the town and school budgets is next Tuesday at 6. So if you would be so inclined to come, that would be great. Love to see you.
Can I just ask a question? The NBC session, is it 6 for both? Because remember last year we all showed up and they had finished the town, finished the school, they were done. Does it start at 5?
No,
Does
starts at 6.
Okay. Do you remember that last year?
Yes.
It all showed up and it was like done.
I think it starts quite promptly at 6. So, and if no one shows up for the first few minutes, the public hearing is closed.
Right. But it wasn't a matter of that. It was a matter of it had started earlier for like, I think, the town and then the school was later, but.
We
then
may
the town-
have-
Wow.
We may have done a business meeting
Yeah,
before
or
the
something like that,
hearing.
but it was done when we walked in.
I don't think that's happening. I think everything is starting at 6. And then I think we're having a public meeting after the public hearing. So the only change to the operating budget that was made was the additional money for high school tuition. So would love to see everyone next Tuesday. On to policies.
Policies. Fantastic. I'm happy to run through these unless you want to jump in or take the lead or.
Go for it.
Okay. So we'll start at the top and a number of these are going to be pretty straightforward. The policy committee have been collecting input from you all. Thank you, Ellen, I got your comments as well. But I think only probably one I would propose moving tonight. The other ones are still plenty of time for sort of updates, but some of these, yeah, we'd like to get them off the list. So let's start with the top third reading, IHBG. And so this is one where a number of these are all according to the legislature changes over the last legislative session are just required. So there's not a lot of leeway. There is leeway on some of them, and I'll bring those up. But for IHBG, home education instruction, there's I think there was a 2022 update or something on portfolios for home education, and it's like required by law, so there's not much we can do. So I will, I guess I'll start by moving policy IHBG, and that's the NHSBA's version that we saw of policy IHBG.
I will second. Any discussion on policy IHBG?
I just had a question about it. It says that the school keeps a list of homeschooled students and or at the SAU, maybe not the school, I can't remember. Parents notify us. We share, obviously, the school keeps a list as well. We have a list of students, but once we're notified, they're not required to keep in contact with us. Okay, I was just wondering, yeah, because I was just wondering, and then that would help us if we knew when it came to high
Yeah,
school. if there were kids.
we only know when they first notify.
Okay. So it isn't
So they
very-
could
that
move.
They could have
helpful
gone
for
to
us.
private, they could have, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, that was the only question.
All in favor of approving policy IHBG?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, no one's opposed? I thought I heard it. Everyone.
Okay, so the other ones, I don't know that we're ready to move the other one, but we'll kind of keep continuing through the list. So the next one is JF, High School Agreement Third Reading. That one is one where Dean looked at the sort of current state of things, and he came back with a couple different options based on the board's direction. And so I was thinking before, and Nancy and I were talking about, like, I don't know if we can, this is not something we can decide, not that we're deciding this, but even having a proposal, I'd like to have the conversation first as a board for the direction here. And the question is basically top off or not.
Yeah,
right? So,
when he initially started working on it, it was a conversation before the board, and then the board decided not to do that. So I think the conversation we had was, so do we just delete that section, or I think he was saying, talk to the board
right,
first.
I think it was long enough ago, there's obviously been changes, tax rates, budget, we've seen all things change, so I don't know whether, I'll maybe leave that to the board. Is that something that we want to reopen? Last time we talked about it, we, the board, were not doing top-offs. And that's still how I feel about it, but I don't know if it's worth getting a sense of the board before the committee puts, one sort of set of language ahead in this case or not.
I mean, my personal opinion is that we couldn't do top-offs for the next year. Both because people have already committed to their schools and also because there's nothing to top off. unless we were using Pembroke, which I think would be unfair to everyone. So I would support not, and I think if a board decided at some point that they wanted to pursue that, they could amend the policy. I mean, I don't know if the policy language prohibits top offs, or if it's sort of nebulous that they could, revise it, or even.
I think there would just be no language in the
Right.
policy about it.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
All right, so I think that's probably enough direction for us to clarify that.
Unless, I mean, everyone is allowed to feel different than I do.
No, I mean, I feel that way too. If we had a whole bunch of kids at Pembroke, and that was where the majority were going, then I would maybe consider it. But to have 5 kids at Pembroke and then say all you people that are at Concord and Co-Brown now have to pay, $3,000, $4,000 to send your kid there, it just seems pretty fair.
But when Concord and Co-Brown are basically the same.
The same
Right.
price, so there's
Doesn't
no
really-
top off difference. We're talking $300, right?
So maybe can we just keep it on third reading one more?
Yeah.
Cleaned up language.
And that was JF.
That was JF. All right, so now through all of these second reads, these are just mostly going to be moved ahead, and I would probably, in most cases, lean towards, I say I, but we, the committee, were talking about this, and leaning towards the NHSBA version for a lot of these. So DAF is about administration of federal grant funds. Again, a lot of these are sort of slight changes or sometimes larger changes with the legislature that are dictating a lot of these. So there's not a lot of leeway with changing language. DAF is one of those where I would just say, let's stick with the NHSBA version.
It sounded like a business office policy.
Right, something about
so
changing the definition of what equipment is, like it's a very, it's a very precise and specific. EBCH, chemical safety, chemical hygiene plan, kind of a similar thing. Safety, obviously very important, but it's.
I was wondering about that one though, because I was wondering it talked about employees were prohibited from bringing their own cleaning supplies. And then it sounded like they could get approval, but there's no procedure for getting approval. So I was wondering if that's something that there should be some sort of procedure for them getting approval, or having a committee that deals with it, or, I mean, I just think cleaning. I know even when I was here, you would bring your own spray bottles to clean your tables off, but you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to use whatever the school has.
Yeah, they're pretty strict with chemicals and what comes into the building.
Because some people would want to bring some that were less.
Chemicals.
Exactly. That's the other thing, like, I don't want all this all over everything all the
Or
time,
something that's a
so.
little more green-based, or,
You're right.
does that prohibit someone from having vinegar in water and spraying?
I think Chris maintains that list, and he's definitely the expert in the area, so that I would want to run something by him. But if there's an opportunity to do that, then we can ask that there's procedures.
I was also questioning the language because I said EPA, but I'm pretty sure it's OSHA that tells all that. Not
We have that looked at.
Yeah.
Maybe some-
They did have New Hampshire DES, which makes sense, but I'm sure it's OSHA. I know when I was doing chemicals and stuff, I was looking at OSHA material safety data sheets, that's all. Yeah, I can check that.
And then EHR1 had, I forget the update that was just made, but it is, we had this, I remember this policy came up a couple of years ago. This was a very recent, sort of a regular conversation. I think some of the language that in here, most of it would stay the same, I think, going forward to the third reading, but there is a blank where it says, insert the cost per copy that we, the board, want to make for right to know requests. And so things that we've gone through over the last, I shouldn't say we, but mostly your office goes through, when there's right to know requests, it can turn into printing stacks of paper.
So I think we have it at 10 cents in the last policy, and what we can do is charge more than our copy costs. And I remember a couple of years ago checking in to see if that was still a reasonable amount per copy, and it was.
I feel like I heard something change in the Board of Selectmen where that might have been increased to more than 10 cents. And I thought checking with them might be worth just
I
sort of.
think it's our personal cost though. Like at the SAU, if I had to make photocopies, what is our cost to make the copies? And if we looked at our contract and said, okay, you're allowed to make this many copies for this much money, we would know the per page cost. I think that's what Amber checked into, but I can circle back to it again.
Recently.
I don't know. It was, I mean, I think it was a couple years ago.
Could we check with the board? of
Absolutely.
Selectmen to see if they're doing-
I think they kept it at 10 cents.
Oh,
This discussion is so sure kept it at 10 cents.
Okay.
per copy.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I feel like it came up recently.
We-
It was kind of 10 cents.
Also offer a thing for people to pick up a digital,
Yes.
but there is a cost to like the USB drive.
If, right, if we make it an option for them, and we let them know, you have to let people know ahead of time if there's going to be a cost incurred, so you can say, you know, what you want is in a 2-inch binder, and offer for them to come in, and we've had people come in and just take pictures of the pages, so there was no cost, and then say, well, I want 6 pages, I know it's 60 cents, or, so you go through that with the person making the request, so that you're accommodating, you know, if you have it electronic, you need to provide it electronic, so if it's something sitting in a file somewhere, you attach it to email.
Right.
So it just depends on the format.
But if something
requested
is
and
too
how
big,
Yes, you may have to put it on a stick or whatever,
Yeah.
they can drop one off and we can put it on there, or we can provide it and they can reimburse us for the cost of it.
is that outlined in the policy?
I think so, yeah. What caught my attention, a lot of it seems like in that sort of, going through, you have to keep it green screen, but I think that is in there.
Yeah.
What caught my attention was in the charge, the cost for, I would just love to. be
I can go back
in line
and
with
check
the-
on it,
with the
sure.
town board, so I can keep it
Could you just have in the policy something that's like, whatever the cost is per page, that's what we would charge, so you don't have the number in there?
No, you have to let them know.
Yeah, I feel like that's not helpful if someone is trying to figure out if they want to make a wage note.
I know, I'm just thinking that you may have to change the pop, so you have to change the
You have
policy.
to
Well,
change the policy if it costs
Because
one up.
costs
We
go up.
should be looking at the policies frequently anyways, at a certain cadence, so that doesn't bother me.
Okay, I can check it out.
Thank you. GBGBA is tri-coded with JCLEA and KFD, so they're all the same thing. And so it's just use of automated external defibrillators, important obviously, so, but it's again, I would stick with the NHSB version.
Which one would you keep though? Because I think they recommended to keep one, not to keep all three.
So if you just, it's usually if you want one policy, you can have it in a category that we don't typically have. If there's the G section is usually staff and the J section is usually students. So we usually just, when it says tri-coded, we would do a double code. We would have the G first when we file it in the staff section, and then the J first when we put it in the student section.
Right. And then I
It's
guess
just such a
there's
wacky
K
coding
for
system of policies, but that's not typically. So it's the same exact policy.
You say you'd like to keep all three of them, or?
No, I mean, that's what you need to do, that's fine.
IGE, parental objections to course material, again, that's similar, with the language of NHSBA. IHAM, health education exemption from instruction, similar, NHSBA. Any questions about that one before we? And within those, actually, IGE, I think it was, it did talk about the policy that I brought up for agenda amendments, which was the KEC one, and there's another reason also, that's a couple reasons why we're going to be talking about KEC as well. Okay, so then that brings us to IJL, which is the library materials selection and adoption policy. And this is the one that was presented to us last meeting by the committee of library media specialists. And I looked at that, we looked at that and worked on it for a while. You had some good questions, Ellen, that you sent, and we sort of had similar questions. And so that led to sort of a bit of a rearrangement of some of that, and also working on new language. Not so much new language, but kind of moving things around, but also eliminating and trying. So that was, I'd love to bring the version that we worked on for us to look at and maybe take a look at. And explain some of the changes, and then I would propose moving ahead with that version rather, which is the updated version from the one we received from the. So can we take a look at that for a little bit? You have a copy. I have hard copies if you can't pull it up. It's not hard copy.
You sent it,
I'm sorry, I have it in an email.
I got it in email. So I was a little confused with stuff that's underlined. Is that new? Okay. So underline is new and then you crossed out the old stuff. Okay.
Right. But it wasn't necessarily new to the document, it might have
You just
been
moved it
moved
around
from
in
a
that
other
section.
section and reorganized some of it. Some of it is new, but some of it is just reorganized. So, all right, as we were looking at this, part of some of the questions that came up were the policy as described by the HSBA, with the name of it, is about material selection and adoption. So it's, the idea is, how do the materials that we use in our school, how do they get to be here? These are not instructional materials as in tied to the curriculum, but it's more library materials which supplement the curriculum, but they're not used for teaching per se, but they are available for a classroom library or for the library that way, where students can come in and choose what they want to read or videos or whatever. But it's not curriculum material. That is a separate policy, which is IJ. This is about library materials. And so that was part of that led to some of the changes that were in this in the policy. So as we go through, let's just start at the top of this document and go through some of the reasons for some of the changes. Part 2, responsibility for the selection of materials. Immediate responsibility is rest of the teachers and media personnel. But then it talks about the school board, but it kind of initially ascribed to us, I think, a different function than really what the board is about. The board would be about adjudicating. We, the board, are not for deciding what books come into the library and what don't come into the school. That's really what the professionals are for. Every couple of years, who knows who's sitting on the school board, and so why would that responsibility sit with the school board? The responsibility of the school board, as we've sort of figured out over the years, is the adjudication of when a policy is set by the school board. But then if there's questions, if there's challenges by the parents, it comes to the school board to decide sort of which side to affirm. The superintendent would make an argument, and then the parent or whoever would either appeal to the board, and the board would decide which way to go, but not about do we keep this book or not. It's which side sort of do we support against the adjudication process. That's how we've been sort of doing things. So that's why I took that line out there. And in particular, that language would be developed further in this other policy, KEC, which is about how does that challenge process play out, which we also need to have as well, and also develop a little bit further. Develop the part 3, the basic assumptions of the selection policy, because again, if this policy is about how are things chosen, then how and why we're choosing things in our schools should become, I would say, first and foremost in this policy. So those, A, B, C, very important ideas about how do we choose things. That basis, I think, would come earlier in the policy, based on things like, again, our professionals in the building. So down to C, suggestions and reactions from teachers are important, but really also looking outside of just the personnel, but looking at professional journals and standards. What is generally accepted as good reading material and library material for our age group is an important thing to look at. So Kirkus book list, school library journal, all kinds of external sources that are good for evaluating and deciding whether or not particular books are coming into the building.
Do we have
Subscription.
subscriptions to those services?
I think those were listed on the original one, so I assume they are. I don't know. They came from the original group, so I think that those are accessible. And I don't know if they're free or not anyway.
The insertion of the word while, I feel like we're missing the other part of that sentence.
While blah 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 blah. Primary sources. I think it's saying while suggestions.
Well, suggestions and directions from teachers are something, I would imagine.
While all of these things will be considered in the selection of materials, primary sources for consultation will be
Okay,
that was the second half. Maybe that you were,
got it. Yeah.
but it could be crossed out. Certainly.
No, that's fine. Okay, that's fine.
D gets into what happens when the challenge comes, and then policy KEC would describe that reconsideration process. In D, we had a conversation about this question of will the item remain on the shelf during the consideration process? And I think maybe that would be cleaned up in policy KEC.
So when this was proposed, did they intend to get rid of policy KEC?
I don't think they even know that
No,
there's a
okay.
policy. The library media specialist wouldn't know all of this
Got it.
association policy.
And when I looked, I didn't see that we had a KEC policy
Yeah, I don't
that I
think
could
we do.
easily find in our policies.
Yeah, I don't think we do.
I'm not sure that it's there.
Okay.
So I think they included all of the things that
I
Nate's gonna
see.
talk about,
I
and,
see.
and Nate was like, that's what KEC would do, if we had to have a separate policy.
I
And we
think
kind
we
of
should
felt
have,
it was-
especially because it's also mentioned in other
In the other
policies.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense to have them as separate documents. I think having them as one document is very overwhelming for people looking to figure it out.
I think that question about does the item remain on the shelf during the process is something we could talk about a little bit more. They had proposed in their initial draft that it would remain on the shelf. That's why it was crossed out there. In our conversation, we were thinking maybe it wouldn't, just based on our previous experience. If a book turns up that clearly, shouldn't be there, clearly I say that's kind of sort of a loaded question because who's
Right.
actually making these decisions? It's easy if a number of parents are really concerned about things for them to make all these sort of challenges and then those books are gone. If we do take that language out, so I think that's why the group would prefer to have them stay on the shelf. But I think your point is that if they shouldn't be there, then they shouldn't be there. But at the same time, if we're using this policy and we're basing on how those books got there in the first place on professional reviews, then they should be there. And this is this loaded conversation we can come back to.
I mean,
Yeah.
you might want to, you might want to consider too, that you could add a line about administrative
That's what I was
oversight,
thinking.
like,
Just, yeah,
it
have somebody
stays
in there to
unless
make a
the
decision.
administration determines otherwise.
Yeah.
And that way,
That
Kristen
takes-
would be
that
the
takes
one that
care of
said
that.
like, no, this is a no-brainer, this is coming down
I like
until
that.
this gets settled. So there is someone.
Right.
That's what I was thinking, just to
Making
put
sure
in that
there's
legal
legal-
arm to make sure that if it's something you really don't
Yeah.
want there for
Yeah,
35
that
days, you
stay
can take it off.
yeah, right.
And
So that's something we can revisit as we go to the third reading, but
And the hope is if we go through the appropriate
You won't have
selection,
that problem.
that you won't have that problem. We kept having that conversation, because I was the same way, like, but,
I felt like you just needed a fail-safe in there that you
Yeah,
could take
I-
off quickly if you needed to.
because if word comes out, that's the book everyone's going to
They're all going to take.
all right, and then again, based on this, the underlying line about the school library bill of rights, school library bill of rights was moved from another part of the document. So it is still attached to part of the original document. For part 4, types of materials covered by this policy, again, classroom textbooks wouldn't fit in this policy because those are instructional materials, not library materials. So these two policies differentiate based on what uses these different media have in the classroom. 5, basis for the selection of materials. This is, again, it's a little bit of a reiteration of the previous kind of this is how we're choosing things. And then there's a line in there about selecting instructional materials, that's policy IJ. But then part 6 was removed, that's the part that we're talking about, moving into policy KDC, which would address how that process is followed. There were concerns of the committee about things like who's on this review, if a review is required, and who's on the committee, what's the steps, and what point does it reach the principal, reach the superintendent, go through those sorts of things. So we'll start with an initial copy from the NHSBA, but then we'll probably tweak it using input from the committee. Part 7, special applications. Again, sticking with some of the original language there, that was useful. And then you get down to below section 7, that's where I took some of that language and moved further up towards the top. Discarding does need to happen sometimes. All original language.
We'll just have to revise numbering here for.
Oh, yeah.
No.
So I would be proposing, as we go towards the third read, that we're happy to clean all this stuff up and kind of reorganize it, but if there's any conversation about any of these things that we went over, now's a good time to have it. Anything you would rather change or stick with, or?
So, KDC, is that
Well,
already
yeah.
written up or?
So that, the district, our district doesn't currently have one, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
But the NHSBA has a version we could start, that would be the starting. And I would envision, as the committee policy, would start with that, but then we would take the input from the committee, the teachers, and kind of put them together in a similar way.
All the stuff that you removed.
All the stuff we
pretty much,
removed, we
yeah.
would clean it up and tie it together in a way that makes sense, and then bring that next meeting. So,
I think that's fine. Thank you for your work.
All right. That was IJL. IKF, high school graduation requirements. I didn't see anything that jumped out to me. I mean, part of it's out of our hands anyway.
Right, and whenever a district doesn't have a high school, it really should reference, there should just be a simple paragraph that states wherever the students attend high school, they'll follow that
So
policy.
do we just say that line instead of this whole thing?
Yep.
Can that be sent, or you have language that you can send? to-
Yeah, I think we did that in some of the SAE policies because we had to reference that there is no school in the SAE. Reference
That's
our
another
sending schools.
JJIC is a bit more complicated. They say in bright red type, if anybody's looked at it, it says have legal look at this to give our own district, our own take on how to implement it. I don't know if Dean has done this for other districts as well, but we should have. I would propose having something to legal to get some.
Yeah, I mean, in those 2 lawsuits, I mean, they won the lawsuit, so that's okay.
JLCA, we just talked about, that's the tri-coded one. JLCJA, emergency plan for sports related injuries and additional protocols for participation. NHSBA for that one as well. Same thing, JLF, NHSBA's version, JLP. I might be going too fast, but all of these look like sticking with the NHSBA's version. JLF, I said NHSBA for that one.
It's just a mandate for annual training, so I need a supporting form.
Right,
Yes.
Yeah. It said somewhere in there
Yeah.
about signage in the school that students can see. So I guess so that if a student was like feeling they needed help, it had
Right.
phone numbers of who they could contact. I don't know that we have signage in the school. I'm not saying we should, I don't want to change the policy, but it's like if that's there and we accept it, then.
And required by law.
Right, then somewhere, and I don't know where you'd put it, I don't know if it's,
Guidance, maybe.
well, that's what I was wondering, but it's just something that we will need to, if we're accepting the policy, then we need to.
Is that JLF you're talking about?
Yeah, JLF, somewhere in it, it said,
There might be a poster that they send to the schools that guidance
I think it's
has.
at the bottom of it, it's one of the last things. I know I read it. It said something about something, yes, yeah, and it says something about for students.
So the superintendent is directed to assure that the principal and administrator of each school shall post a sign in the school that is readily visible to students in the form provided by the Division for Children and Youth.
Yeah.
So they have it.
And Heather might already have it, but we'll check on that.
Yeah. It's just,
It says it also has to be included in each student handbook and placed on the district's website. And finally, the superintendent has to ensure that Form J that he is ready with all staff members in a hard copy form. Go through the district's
the second reading.
Oh,
This is only the second reading.
yeah, and then training.
Yeah, but for next year.
yeah, it was just that I saw that,
Oh,
oh,
yeah, no, that's good.
Any other comments on the second reads?
No.
Move those to a third next time. And then first reading, DIA fund balance, I didn't actually look at it.
That's
Yeah,
Amber's.
and I think she said the sample was fine, because we asked that for another visit.
We'll take a look at that. And then the other one is the KEC, which will put as a second reading next time.
Yeah.
And we'll work on conversion of that, we can tie the committees on work.
Cool. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
All right, some informational items. I don't have any. All right,
Can I just ask one question though? I just wanted to happening with the solar thing. I just got an email yesterday from Dean that I need to decipher before I share, well, you know, I might throw it in my folder. I think we're gonna be okay, believe it or not. There were two pieces that he was looking at. So the first comment that he was okay with was the, when we checked with USDA to make sure what the solar folks were proposing, would we still be okay with USDA for the grant? And the answer to that was yes, based on USDA's response, he was comfortable that that would be the case. He wanted to look into, the other outstanding item was whether a district can hold ownership in an LLC, because that was sort of a workaround, because we received the REAP grant from USDA, and that's what I need to look at and digest. But it seems to say, the first sentence says, we've concluded the Deerfield School District probably has the ability to purchase the ownership of the LLC that would hold the solar array equipment. So, and then there's a bunch of.
So that's like, if in the future we want to buy it, we just want to make sure we have permission to buy it.
Yes, and he said, because of the way it had to be rephrased, because we received that rural education grant. And it says, please note that we would still need to review the separate option to purchase so that it would take an appropriation to do such, and that depending on the terms of acquisition, it might take a vote at the school district meeting. So if we decided to purchase it at the end. Okay. So I think we're gonna be okay.
Awesome.
So I'll reach back out to Ted, let him know what the attorney's
Yeah, I was just talking to
comments
someone
were.
from the energy committee.
Yeah.
Came up last night.
Cool.
They've been very patient. Understanding that was
Probably not
definitely,
happening
it was
this summer.
definitely a snafu, and who knew that there was a USDA requirement if you took the REAP grant that would pertain to this.
That's great.
So it was good that we had everything within two. There was a comment though in one of his emails, I'm gonna put all this together for you, that I think at the end, it went from 100% to 50%. I don't know if it was a reimbursement or there was something for the end that would go to 50 cents and 70%. So I need to look at that too. It's been a lot that's gone back and forth. But I think we're gonna be okay.
I feel like there was a 1 year time frame on the roof condition for like the walls on the roof or something.
The vendors, I think that said they would absorb the cost of having it re-inspected.
Yeah, and they also, when we talked to them too, they said if they had to recertify it, really wasn't that expensive to redo it, if they needed to. But it wasn't.
Sorry, this is fresh.
Yes, yes.
That it wasn't worth like trying to rush through it, because it wasn't that much of an expense to have to recertify. Yeah.
All right. We are back to public comments.
Kevin Verbo, McCarran Road. So if we do the solar, I certainly hope that we benchmark it and we total all the costs, right, to make it happen, and that we keep close track of savings from solar. So at the end of the project, we actually know if it delivers on the alleged process of saving the district money, right? Because it was sold as a money-saving thing besides being green. And I certainly hope the district is going to do that. And I hate to see it become another thing that we don't track. So cleaning supplies, you can just close your eyes and imagine I'm a neat freak. And so I bring in some ammonia to clean my windows, because ammonia is a fantastic glass cleaner. And I also bring in some bleach, because bleach is an excellent disinfectant for surfaces. And then the tragedy occurred that somehow the bleach and the ammonia get mixed by accident or by spillage, and now you fill a room full of mustard gas, right? Chlorine gas, because that's what you get when you mix those. And so that's the reason you have to be very careful about what you allow into buildings. So the academic excellence. So I totally hear the comments and I get it. I've been following along since I moved here in 2000. And I look at what is made publicly available for academic performance results. And I don't see positive trends. I mean, we see an uptick one year and then it's down the next and it's up. And then we monkeyed around with the assessments. So we went from decades of data to the stupid SBAC. So we had a couple of years of that nonsense. And then we went to a statewide assessment system. And so we finally have a few years of the New Hampshire statewide assessment system. So at least we're using one assessment. That's the one that's publicly available. You don't see the improvement. The school board runs the school, and we spend precious little time talking about these things. You guys are new, right? So you haven't had a lot of time on the board, right? Nate's been here for 9 years. Hardly ever hear anything, right? Once in a while, we get a presentation from a grade or a team, and we get a snapshot of what's going on, but we don't see the trend. We never, when we bring in new math programs, new reading programs, you're all excited about the new program they're bringing in. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. I don't know, right? But are we setting a benchmark so that when we implement it, we see whether it actually has the positive effect that we're hoping for, or is it actually neutral, or does it go in the wrong direction? Because we adopt things that go in the wrong direction. We've been struggling with math instruction. All this we're going to redo the entire curriculum, We're teaching grades 1 through 8. We're supposed to be teaching basic literacy, grammar, mathematics, science, and it seems like we're just in this constant rejiggering of everything, right? There's no consistency. I brought it up before. Why, when we look at the best performing schools in the state, right? Most people can agree on what those schools are. Do we reach out to them and say, hey, what are your best practices that make you so successful? And the most common response I get to that is, well, they're rich towns. So they have better parents, they have better kids, they have better stuff. So there's no way we could recreate that miracle here. But if you look at the Common Core standards, right? In Massachusetts developed and adopted their own standards. Massachusetts was the educational miracle in the United States. They made progress year over year over year, every metric that they used to evaluate it. And then they adopted the Common Core, which many were critics of. I am, Next Generation Science Standards, it's the same nonsense. They adopted that, and their performance is rolling over. There's no improvement. It continues to go down. You would think that they would say, look, tap the brakes, we made a mistake, dump this Common Core nonsense, bring back our old standards so we can get back on the right track, but they don't do it. I don't see the school board discussing it. I don't see people laying benchmarks and then presenting data annually to say, yeah, it's working, no, it's not. I mean, maybe it's all done behind closed doors, but I don't see it. And so the only data I have that's publicly available shows me we're not improving. I can't tell if we're doing better or worse. It seems kind of flatline from my interpretation, right? And so that should be a prime focus of a school board, to make the school under their tutelage to be the best academic school for the most children as absolutely possible. And that's why I say things like we don't take academic excellence seriously, because we don't spend time on it. I don't hear those discussions. I hear it a little bit from you two recently, right? So that's good, but since 2009, since I've been playing along, I just don't hear it, I don't see it. We get little blips here and there, and that's all we get. And that's why I make those comments. And I would love to see a school board that gets really involved in making sure that that we know that where we're benchmarked, when we bring something in new, we're tracking it to make sure it delivers on the promise, and if it doesn't, then dump it. Find what works and stick to it. We need to find what works and stick to it. It's reading, it's writing, it's grammar, it's math, it's basic math. It's grade 1 through 8. We're not talking about a postdoc. And so that's why I make those. That's why I make those comments. All right? Just so you know where I'm coming from, because I know sometimes I can be a little obtuse and a little hard to decipher. When I send you a communication, if you want to discuss it with me, all you got to do is send me a note. I'd be more than happy to block out time and come talk to the school board, and because I only have 3 minutes, and I appreciate the extra time. I know I'm over. I'm more than happy to help and share information any way I can. My job's not to be a cheerleader for school boards and administrations. My job is to be an advocate for the students. Right? That's my job, and so when I'm highly critical, it is simply because I'm trying to drive positive change for our students and our families. That's my motivation. Right? Appreciate the extra time. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Hi, Jennifer Lewis, Ridge Road. I just want to say thank you for acknowledging my safety concerns that I had. I appreciate it. If I can help advocate for any changes like the fingerprinting, I will gladly do whatever I can. I personally think anybody with kids alone or not alone, whether in the classroom with teachers, I think everybody should be fingerprinted just as baseline. And then just from a parent outside point of view, I do think the communication does need to be ramped up. I understand you can't give details, discipline, all of that. I wouldn't want any of that information about my kid to be put out there if it were my daughter. But just acknowledgement that something has happened, I think, within a school, good or bad. And just to inform parents. Like if the Wizards came, I would kind of want to know about that maybe a Friday night before the next week, like a snapshot of what's ahead, not always what has happened. I think just feeling more informed out there would be a lot less chatter all around. But that's just my advice. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we don't need a non-public. Okay. No appointments, resignations. All right. I will make a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Sandra Missy.
You see this fast.
Yeah, she got her. She wanted to get on that.
Thanks, dude.